I'm Tim Brantner. Welcome to Capitol Views. We're with Representative Paul Seaton with us tonight, a 15-year now veteran of the legislature. Paul's from Homer, and you've been here, you've seen a lot of changes in the legislature in the years since you've been down here.
There have been several different governors and different styles, and so, yes.
And we have something new this year. You're part of a new organization in the House, a new coalition organization.
Yeah, Alaska House Majority Coalition, that's right.
Yeah. Paul, what sort of brought this about, and what are the big issues that you see you're dealing with this year?
Well, sure, and I think this is the first time probably in Alaska history where a coalition is formed around a principle of solving the state's problem, and that is this fiscal crisis we're in. So it was the independents, Republicans, and Democrats came together to organize around the principle of doing a comprehensive, sustainable fiscal plan for the state. We've been kind of working around the edges and trying to get there and haven't been able to. And so for the first time, there's been an organization saying, this is our job and this is what we're going to do. We're going to take action and get a comprehensive fiscal plan out of our body and over to the other, and then we'll go from there. Everything's always a negotiation to get the right mix, but we think that we'll have all four elements in there. That's some restructuring of the permit fund earnings, some way to get structurally out some of the money, also a reform of the permit fund dividend, some sensible budget cuts. We'll have to make some of those, and making sure that we get all the way there. So I think we'll be there. And then we have to have some broad-based tax. And right now we're looking at proposing a income tax. It's not the only broad-based tax. It could be a sales tax. It could be something else. But that's the way we've looked at it, as being most fair and balanced across all segments of Alaska. But we need all those pieces.
Yeah, it's a complicated mix of tools that you have to put together. The governor's proposed a fuel tax increase. In a way, that's a broad-based tax too.
Well, it's a small broad-based tax. It's those that are using motor fuels. But really, the motor fuels tax is going to give us enough money to that increase to do our federal match. I mean, it doesn't really sustain the budget of Alaska. And so what we've been looking at is something about $650 million of a broad-based tax, getting about $650 million from reduction in permanent fund dividend. That takes it to $1,000 or a little more. And then restructuring to get a POMV, or percent of market value, payout from the permanent fund earnings, so that right now we've got about 2.3% percent of market value payout, and that gets us $1.5 billion. So all in all, we see that we can get a sustainable fiscal plan going forward with those elements all tied together. And the big thing is that the permanent fund dividend could be used as a payment against your income tax, and therefore it can be all in one bill and tied together and can be one vote.
And the advantage of that is the people would have to vote up or down on one package. That's the approach that's being taken?
That's correct, and the reason is because it gives balance. A reduction in the permanent fund dividend is much more impacting on the lower income and larger families, and the income tax is more impacting on high-income workers. But when you look at those two combined in the ratios that we've got, it pretty well evens out across the entire spectrum of Alaskans.
Is the permanent fund POMV idea similar to what the governor has proposed and passed the Senate last year?
Well, it's a little different. The governor's proposal calls for the money all to go to the unrestricted general fund. And then you would be paying the dividend out of the general fund. And we're not changing any of the structure of the generation of the permanent fund dividend. We're just changing the percentage of the money of the distributable earnings that goes to pay the dividend, and basically splitting that. Half of it would go to pay dividends, and half of it would go to pay for services through the general fund.
Yeah, an important element here is that you're retaining the connection of the dividend to the performance of the permanent fund.
That's right, the 5-year average of the fund. So it would be exactly the same as it is now. We don't have to get in and change royalties. We don't have to change any of those mixtures. Everybody understands how the system works now. All we would be doing is be changing a percentage that pays out. Instead of 50% of the distributable earnings going to a dividend, 25% would go to the permanent fund dividend, and the other 25% would go to the unrestricted general fund to provide for services of Alaska.
But the core principle is by still connecting it with the performance of the fund, you create that constituency, that connection between the public and the performance of the fund.
That's correct.
And the other ideas that have been out there are different than that.
They are, and like I say, when you take a POMV, percent of market value at 5.4, that's getting up there pretty high, and to make it sustainable. But when you put that money into the general fund and then you pay the dividend out of the general fund, it now means that the dividend is in direct competition, that payout, with education or with other revenue sources you're getting. So if you're going to pass a tax and it goes in and then you have to pay that money out of the general fund, then you're putting things in contest with each other.
I see.
And so we keep the system the same way it is, just change the formula a little bit as far as the percentages.
Well, interesting, complex set of issues to deal with. And thank you for coming down and with us, Representative Seaton, and thank you for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
And thank you. This is Tim Bradner for Capital News.